I'm just not that girl that goes looking for a problem when I don't feel like there's a problem. And I know this past year, a lot of women have been discovering and learning and talking a lot about perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, all these pauses. And even though I was 53 for the majority of last year, I still didn't feel like that I was having any issues. So why am I going to look into that if I'm not really having an issue? I got to put the energy, time into that until I needed to. And then I needed to. So early on last year, because I was noticing some things that were not optimal for my health and my fitness, I decided I needed to find out more about hormone replacement therapy and how to optimize my health. I didn't feel like I was getting the answers that I wanted through my own provider. So I was excited when I found Marek Health online. And Marek Health helps optimize our health and our fitness. It's amazing. I found them and I was like blown away. I said, yeah, I want to learn more about this. Well, if you've heard, if you listen to other episodes, there's some episodes back there where I actually talk about Marek Health. I share my full experience with Marek Health. But today, I am super excited because today I am going to be bringing on a special guest, Ashlyn Caroll. She is my personal Marek Health coach. She follows my health and my fitness. She's been there for me for months. And I'm bringing her on today as our guest. I've got a lot of questions we're going to cover today. I'm super pumped to have her, and that's what we're going to get into today in this episode. And I'm excited for you to get to know Ashlyn Caroll. But first, I should have said this first, girl. Happy New Year! Happy 2025! Whoop whoop! Just got back from 10 days of travel in West Virginia. Went to West Virginia to go see Country Boy's family for Christmas. It was amazing. Thank you for those of you who followed along with me in my stories on Instagram and Facebook. It was fun. It's always a great time, especially getting to be with one of the most amazing women I've ever known, Grandma Blizzard. 104 years old. This woman still lives independently in her home. She still cooks and cleans. She's walking around. She's here, like present. You can have a conversation with her. Her memory is phenomenal. I mean, way better than anybody I've ever known. She can tell you stories from way back when. She's all here, completely aware and present. And she's such a delight, such a joy to talk with. Anyway, that's the highlight, right? I mean, of course, all of Country Boy's family, heartwarming, loving, generous, caring people. I love it. I've always just dreamed about being a part of a big family of people that love each other and spend time together, especially with the holidays. And that's been such a gift, such a beautiful thing that I married into without quite fully knowing, but it was an amazing trip. And then Country Boy and I flew back to San Antonio and spent a few days in the Texas Hill Country in a little cabin in the woods. And it was really fun. It was great. It was very refreshing, especially just enjoy the beautiful surroundings. And the deer, this place was called Deer Haven Retreat. And they actually had deer on the land. It was really cool, really amazing. It was cool. It was a great time. But I just wanted to say Happy New Year, Happy 2025. I'm excited to get ready. I'm already getting ready. I'm already getting into the year. I don't know about you, but I'm already doing my thing. I'm, writing down my stuff in my journal. I'm talking about the new year. I'm helping women start off and get kicked off with their fat loss goals and New Year's resolutions, which there's nothing wrong with that. So I hope you're kicking off 2025 ready and excited, and maybe, just maybe, you want to look into optimizing your health and your fitness with some pretty comprehensive and amazing blood work, health coaching, and treatment with Marek Health. So with all that said, Happy New Year. Let's get into this episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Well, welcome to the show, Ashlyn. So excited to have you here. Finally, we've been talking about this, but you're finally here. So I'm super pumped. Let's start out let's introduce you. Would you mind telling us a little bit about you and what you do for Marek?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Been on
My
like a
pleasure.
couple. Yeah, so it's been a while. So this is fun. But yeah, so I am a health coach here at Merrick. Little background actually. So I am also come from the health and fitness space. I was actually a women's health coach prior to working with Merrick, mostly nutrition, and a lot of behavior change. So health, behavior change, mindset, psychology around food, also kind of delved into a little bit more of the like quote unquote life coaching, like relationship with food, self, kind of working through relationships and things like that. But really kind of just started to get to a space where I was like missing the functional side of things, right? My background is actually in exercise physiology. I thought I was going to go into medicine and be like a neonatal nurse. So I really kind of missed the medical side of coaching. And that's kind of where I found Merrick. I actually became a
Oh,
client of
cool.
Merrick first. So I've been working with my health coach for about 2 years now, kind of working on my own journey. And really just loved the process, loved how they did things, kind of the mission behind Merrick, but also the fact that you get a coach at Merrick as well. And so just kind of thought that it'd be cool to apply and bridge the gap between the coaching that I was doing before working with women, and then also getting to kind of bring back in some of that medical and science side of things to kind of fill the gaps for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, and my like coaching background, aside from just like working with women, did specialize in like hormones, gut health. Personally, I've kind of gone through a lot of my own experiences hormonally, but also like gut health wise. So it just kind of felt very special to be able to like coach women through the same things because I know what it feels like to be going through those things.
Right. And so how long have you been with Merrick?
A little over like 8 months or so. So I actually started with them back in like end of March, early April, and I kind of been onboarded since then. Yeah, it's been
Oh, okay. That's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like new, like dipping my toes in, but it's been a really, really cool experience.
I wonder, I'm just curious, just as a side note, how is there a specific way that Merrick pairs up clients with health coaches?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it ultimately kind of depends on like the client's preference. So when somebody books their intake, they do have the option to book like with just the first available, meaning whoever fits their schedule the best. But you do also have the option to look on our website, and all of the coaches are listed online. A little bio background to their educational preferences, but also just some personal like tips and tricks about who that person is, what they specialize in. I know for myself personally, and I'm sure you've also recognized this in like your own coaching, and if you've had coaches in the past, like somebody can have all of the information in the world, but if you don't connect with them on a one-to-one level, like
Right.
it's not going to be a great relationship. So the great thing with Merrick is you may get paired with one coach, but if you are like, hey, this just like we're just not gelling, like the conversations just don't go well, you're always able to change and kind of work with somebody new. Or maybe things are going great and you're like, I just want to hear somebody else's perspective and try something different. Like that's always an option. So it's kind of up to the client, unless they like the provider sees somebody that would be specifically like helpful for them, or they have a specific need or goal, and somebody like focuses on that, then we would kind of direct them to the best person for them.
Yeah, totally. I totally get that. I mean, coaching is very personal. And
Mhm.
yeah, you can have a coach that's an expert, great at what they do, great, they have the knowledge, but the connection's not there, and so it doesn't work out very well. The relationship's not there. That's really important. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that
Yeah.
like I know for myself personally, like and everybody's a little different. Like some people like to be with like the same sex person. Like if they're a female, they want to work with a female because it's kind of
Right.
hard to like talk about those things or it's scary. Whereas like what's great, like for me, I've never had a female coach. I've always worked with men. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just very like interesting to see like different people's perspectives, but then also just like everybody's comfort level too. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very intimate thing. Like you're talking about not only like your, I mean, with Merrick, your biofeedback and your labs and your hormones and everything like that, but you also have to understand the big picture of like what's going on in life. What's your stress like? What's your relationship like? Are you guys like, is fertility a goal? Like there's so many things that you talk about.
Yeah, there's everything. It affects everything in your life, all areas of your life.
Mhm.
Well, excuse me, I'm still kind of nursing a cold here.
Yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you, and I love working with a person that when I ask questions, I'm getting actual, actual answers that are scientific and, real, like telling me what's going on, not just because. But talking with you, I've felt a connection with you because there's that science-y side, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't like to just take somebody's word for it. I'm going to ask the questions, and sometimes that doesn't work out with some people. They just want you to just do what they tell you, you know? But, working with you has been just a pleasure because you will explain things and help me understand what's going on. And, as a nurse, like, coming from a nurse background, medical background, I don't just take somebody's word for it, and I always appreciate that nobody's when I'm talking to a professional like you, there's no offense taken. It's just, let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about the science and what is the reason behind what's going on because we've had this, right? I've had questions like something's not making sense or I'm confused and I'm able to just say, this is what I'm thinking. What is the reason behind why we're doing this? So,
Yeah.
I just really appreciate that because I think it takes a certain person to remove any kind of feelings, emotions, and judgments and just answer the facts. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that like that's so important. And unfortunately, like in this world, I think that like that's not talked about enough. And I know for me personally, like I really do a good job at like trying to explain like the why, mostly because of my own personal background. Like as a
Yeah.
kid, I was always just told because I said so. I just wanted to be told why I was doing something or what was happening.
Yes.
I never
Yes.
got the answer. So it really is just like, okay, well, if I understand why I'm doing something, like I'm also more likely to follow through with it. And that's like a
Right.
basic like psychological principle. Like somebody
Sure.
they have the autonomy to decide what they want to do. Like they're going to follow through and do it. Versus just being told like do this because I said so. Like
Yeah.
need
And
a
that's a skill.
yeah.
It's a skill to teach. I was very adamant like that as a parent. When, bringing up the kids, I would always give them the reasoning behind why what we're doing. It's
Yeah.
very helpful. It helps them understand life and the way the world works. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. I have my questions here that we can
Yeah.
discuss, and I know I've talked about my personal health and optimization journey here with Merrick on a couple of different episodes.
Uh-huh.
But I just want to give a little overview of how Merrick and being optimized in my own health and fitness and how it's helped me and why. Why did I come to Merrick? And
Hmm.
so I'll go ahead and just share that for our
Yeah.
listeners. So, I had been seeing my gynecologist like normal, every year, and they do the blood work. And my, I would get, they would call me and tell me this was towards the, middle, late part of my 40s.
Hmm.
I'm now 54, and they would say, your testosterone is low. Do you want to start testosterone treatment? But I've been in my health and fitness journey consistently building muscle, getting leaner, stronger, healthier, and fit since 46. So all these years, just going to the gym, and I am getting my cardio in for health, my heart health, and optimizing my health through my nutrition and all the other lifestyle things that we can do outside of supplementation, right? And I didn't think about HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in my late 40s. I really didn't think about it at all. I know my mother never did it. And I've watched her and I haven't seen any like ill effects of her not being on HRT. So I wasn't very concerned. I just thought, I'm feeling great. I've got energy. I'm building muscle. I look good in the mirror. I'm feeling great in my clothes. I don't need any of that. And I thought to myself, if and when I start to encounter any issues or problems, that's when I'll address it. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Well, it started to happen towards when I was 50, the end of 52 years old, 53, beginning of 53. That's when I started to notice some things that were not optimized for me. And my doctor wanted to start me on a pellet. And of course, me being very inquisitive, I wanted to know exactly what is in the pellet. What is the dosage and frequency? How is this impacting my body? Like, I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted. I reached out to one of my peers in the industry online, who is also an expert in this hormone field, also partnered with you guys with Marek Health, And so that's how I learned about Marek Health. And I was like, wow, this is very fascinating. And then I started to become more interested in hormone replacement therapy and getting my questions answered about what exactly is this? Why do we need to, or what are my options? And how do I go about this? Because if I'm having some kind of deficit in an area of my hormones, I don't want to just throw a pellet in my butt cheek here and not know what's going on. I want to know what's happening, right? So I learned these things and I connected with Merrick and I went through the process and I have been so pleased. So to make a long story short, it's not something where you're on the, I don't know if this sounds right. It's not something on the preventative side, but in some ways it is, because as you're optimizing your health, you are preventing further problems with your health. But I loved the concept of optimization because I know that a lot of um, practitioners, doctors, whatever, they do these blood work things and they give you results that are based on the average. Like, okay, somebody your age, this is the range of what it's supposed to be in their blood work, and they're like, you're within that range. You're good. You're fine. I don't want to be just fine. I don't want to be average or good enough in my age group. I want to optimize my health, my fitness, and what I can do for myself. So the things that I was discovering for myself, and what I think of, like when I think of when I hit the age of 53, that's when I was starting to notice things like maybe not as much energy in the gym. Definitely, this was the biggest one. I'm going to be completely like, this is very transparent. Drop in libido, big time, big time. And I don't like that. I didn't want that. It affects your relationship and your intimacy with your partner. And it just was not good. So I was like, now it's time. Now we need to go find out what's going on. So I was
Absolutely.
really happy to come and find out, about Merrick Health online. And like, I can just take charge. I can take responsibility for the areas. And being a nurse, it felt good because I know what's going on. I wasn't just blindly going into something. I knew what was happening here, going through getting the blood work in the process. So I've just been very pleased. Just to make it a long story short, I did decide to go on hormone replacement therapy. It's been a game changer now. I think I've been taking care of things optimized in a way for the past, you can probably tell me, has it been 5 months, 6 months now? Do you know when I,
Yeah, right about 6 months or so. Yep.
yeah. And it's like I'm back to myself. It's like
Yeah.
before having any of the issues, because now and the sleep has gotten better. There's no night sweats anymore. Libido is back to normal. Um, just all these things. And I found out through the blood work that I was having a deficiency in my thyroid. So I didn't even know that. And that is also something that we addressed through Merrick Health. So all that to say, I'm really happy with it. And and I was so happy with it that I reached out to you guys and I was like, how can we be affiliate? How can I send people to you guys and be affiliated? And rather than just having an affiliate with Merrick, they said, this looks like it'll be a great partnership. So let's
Mhm.
partner. And I'm just proud to say that Rock That Fitness is now partnered with Merrick. We're just barely scratching the surface of this. A few of our Rock That Fitness members have gotten on board. And so we're just starting, and I'm excited to see how this is going to impact other women as well. So that's my story. That's
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. And that was, I think there was a lot of things that you touched on that I'm sure a lot of women can also like relate to. And I know for me personally, like diving into the HRT space, like I like blindsided, like really didn't have an idea of like what it was. And a lot of people are like that. Like, okay, they just
yeah,
assume that HRT is like, okay, it's just testosterone, or it's like, it's
right.
gonna like make me manly or whatever it may be. But one of the things that you said was just like, it really just improved like the quality of my life and brought me back to baseline. And like that ultimately, like when HRT is used the way that it should be, is like, that's exactly what it's for. It's like, let me bring you back to like what your body should already be doing. However, because of the world that we live in today, all of our hormones are a little bit lower. Like if you look at LabCorp reference ranges for testosterone, for example, from like 10 years ago, like where that LabCorp, that standard American reference range is then compared to where it is now, probably a couple hundred differences. Like it's so much lower now just because of where we live. That like the quality of our life is really like ultimately what you're looking to achieve. It's not, okay, let me like take a second edge on this, or let me cheat the system. Like you still, at the end of the day, you have to put in the work. Like you have to sleep, you have to train, you have to eat right. Like you have to do all the things. It's just helping you be able to function in a way that allows you to do those things.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm always saying whenever I talk about my own hormone replacement therapy is that I'm I'm only just replacing what my body is no longer
Right.
producing.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything, beyond that. In fact, I was surprised to find out that during when I got my results that my estrogen was fine, and I thought that was like, wow, that's amazing. Most women are needing more estrogen. They need to supplement estrogen. So I am supplementing testosterone because my body's not producing it like it used to.
Yeah.
So we can't guess at these things. Like women need to stop thinking, "Oh, I just this is my hormones," and then just guess and not take care of this when we can
Yeah.
find out exactly ways that we can optimize where our body is deficient. It's very, very individualized.
Absolutely. And there's so many different like systems for females specifically too, in terms of like hormones and just like the thyroid and your lipid management, to where it's like it's not ever just like one thing. So it's like without testing, like you really have a hard time of like, okay, for somebody that's coming to like Rock That Fitness for like body composition goals, fat loss goals, they're like, oh, well, maybe I think it's like my estrogen's too high. So I just need to do like X, Y, and Z to like bring this down. But it's like reality, maybe it's not like low estrogen or high estrogen. It's like the ratio between your estrogen and progesterone's like off. So it's like, okay, how can we balance that? Or like if you're like fatigued, you're like, oh, it's my testosterone. I need to start testosterone. It's like, but maybe it is actually your thyroid too, right? Like you said.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I didn't
like,
know. Right.
yeah. So, and those things go hand in hand. Like a lot of times, like low testosterone deficiency symptoms can be masked as like low thyroid. So it's like sometimes you may not even need to go the route of TRT if you can optimize your thyroid. So,
Right. Yes. I
yeah,
love that. And I love that whenever Merrick sends you the review of your results, they'll make recommendations and they'll tell you like this is recommended or this is essential. It gives you the option if you want to supplement or this isn't very essential, but you can. I love that kind of breaks it down and gives you that option for all of the things
yeah.
that the diagnostics covers.
Yeah, the lab report that you get after the labs is insane. Like the amount of education that you guys get like in that lab report like is crazy. But then
Yeah.
also like you said, like the treatment plan of like, okay, what's recommended, what's essential. And ultimately it's like at the end of the day, like it's your choice. Like you get to choose like how fast do you want to get to your goals? Like, do you want to get there in like a Ferrari or like a Honda Civic? It's like you're gonna get there eventually, but it's like how aggressive or proactive do you want to be about where you want to go?
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool because I think a lot of people just go into it like, oh, I need to start X, Y, and Z medication. And maybe they have like a fault, like a just like a skewed version of like, okay, well, I never want to be on medication. But like in their minds, maybe medication is like, okay, like cholesterol meds or like diabetes medication, but like understanding that like taking like thyroid or hormone replacement, like yes, it's medication, but it's more on the preventative, like let me improve your quality of life versus like I'm doing this because I'm like in a diseased state.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know for me personally, like I've always been against like medications, and then like
Mhm.
so like won't take anything if I don't need it. I don't take ibuprofen, nothing.
Yeah.
But like being a client at Merrick and then also just like working here too, it's kind of opened my perspectives a little bit of like, oh, like these are things that like are just here to like optimize my quality of life. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm on X, Y, and Z medication, like something's wrong with me.
Right, right. Well, let's turn our attention to women. Obviously, Rock That Fitness serves women over 40, basically. And let's talk about what is how does blood work play a role in identifying the barriers to fat loss and just body recomposition after the age of 40? Like, how can Merrick help us in those specific areas?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think like as I was kind of like taking some notes and prepping for this, I
Yeah.
was okay, like what approach can I take? And it's like obviously getting a full picture of your health, getting a complete comprehensive lab panel is always ideal. But if we wanted to like dive into like the specifics of like, okay, what's going to be the most important for fat loss and body composition in general. Hormones are going to play a big role for sure. Like where are your sex hormones, your estrogen levels, your progesterone, your testosterone. But you also want to look at like your stress levels, insulin sensitivity, inflammatory markers, and then your thyroid as well. When we dive into like each one specifically, and I won't touch on all of them, but just kind of diving into like some of the big hitters, like estrogen, for example. So like as women do approach menopause, this is one of the main hormones that kind of starts to fluctuate. It starts to naturally decline, but a lot of like the perimenopause symptoms that people experience are due to like the crazy fluctuations. Like you're gonna get a high estrogen and then a low. So you're getting all of these just like crazy swings to where like that's where all those symptoms are coming in. But as you do age and once you enter menopause, like estrogen does decline. And estrogen is responsible for like the fat distribution of things around like your hips and your thighs. So when
Mm-hmm.
estrogen levels drop, then the fat actually starts to accumulate around like your abdominal area. So that's where you get
Yeah.
like the meno gut that everybody talks about on Instagram. So it's like that shift can obviously make things harder in like maintaining a positive like body composition. Progesterone is also going to be really helpful because it does influence a lot of symptoms around like mood regulation, anxiety. It's going to improve your sleep. A lot of people have insomnia when they have lower estrogen levels, but it does also cause water retention. So it is something that if it's not balanced, like you're going to have negative effects on your body composition and even just like fluid retention. So those two, I think, go hand in hand really, really well and are often like overlooked
Yeah.
because it's always testosterone or just estrogen. And then obviously like testosterone is another really big one just because that is something else that does just negatively or starts to kind of naturally decline as we age. But it's just so important for muscle mass and muscle preservation. And we know that muscle obviously burns more calories than fat, but also just from like a quality of life, like thinking as you're getting older, like bone health, like the more muscle you have around your bones, like just better quality of life you're going to have and also like the safer your life's going to be. You're going to prevent
Yeah.
injury and just have like a longer life without any like modification. So like that's going to be really helpful, but it also helps improve your metabolism. So it is beneficial for like losing fat, improving your energy levels as well. Um, the other like big ones that I really like try and focus on, especially like in like women, specifically like in menopause, but also just like women in general, is going to be our stress levels. I think now more than ever, stress is probably at its highest for everybody, just because we live in this like go, 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 hustle and grind culture. And women are also just like, I don't want to say brainwashed, but to some degree, a little brainwashed of like we always need to be going and need to always be on and
Right.
okay to where we like live at a high stress
Mm-hmm.
all of the time. Like none of us know how to slow down and like just be. So stress levels and cortisol is going to be a huge one because obviously the more cortisol we do have, the higher it stays elevated. It's going to cause the fluid retention, which is going to impact
Right.
you to lose fat. It's also going
That's
to,
huge. It's
yeah.
huge.
Yeah. It's also going to influence like your like metabolic health. So your insulin
Yeah.
level. So increased cortisol is going to cause an increase in like insulin resistance. So then those two go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
there really is like a little bit of everything. Honestly, it's never just, okay, I just need to check this one marker. That's just
Right.
emphasizes how important like comprehensive things like go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about the approach that Marek Health takes is that it's not just one thing and it's not always going to be, take this pill or this supplement. That Merrick takes the holistic approach, and y'all are not just going to say, here, just take these pills or take this supplement. You are also going to say, but we got to take care of lifestyle. We got to take care of, like you just said, making sure you're getting optimal sleep, making sure you're getting activity, healthy exercise in your life, building muscle, training. Yeah, stress levels, decreasing those stress levels. Like all of this plays a huge role. We do this in Rock That Fitness. This is one of the biggest things that I have learned as a coach for women is that exactly that. When women are go, 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 and they may be doing all the things,
Mhm.
right? They may be
Yeah.
dialing in their nutrition, getting their exercise in, but the one thing they're not doing is taking care of this stress level. And
Mhm.
so it's working against their body and they're not able to just drop the fat. They're not. Their body is, like you said, it's holding on
Yeah.
because it's like in, we're gonna be like, what is that called? Um, we gotta stay alive, you know. So
Yeah.
your body is fighting. It's like gonna take care, it's gonna hold on to everything because it needs everything for survival. That's what I was looking for, my word. So yeah, it's a big deal. And I just love that Merrick takes the approach of all those things. You're going to look like, and you keep up with your client. Like
Mhm.
you're keeping up with me. You know I'm strength training regularly. You know my daily activities and how, and y'all talk about all of these things and they all play a role and they play a factor. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I just wanted to say like I
Yeah.
appreciate that about Merrick Health.
Yeah, and stress is just one of those things where like it's talked about a lot, but I don't think it's like necessarily like addressed. And it's like it's 100% a like, hi, it's me, I'm the problem. Like I am that person that's gonna check all the boxes. I'm eating right, I'm working,
Yeah.
I'm getting my cardio, I'm doing all the things, but like I'm not actually taking the time to like do the stress management. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, and maybe you're the same way, where it's like we're overcomplicating it. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
in order to like have this stress management, I need to like read for 20 minutes a day. I need to meditate. I need to journal. I need to do all these things. And like in theory, all of that's great. But like if it's going to like prevent you from actually getting those things done because of like the time or like the mental energy that it takes. Like if you're on all day, the last thing you want to do is sit down and journal for 30 minutes about like some really big uncomfortable thing about your feelings. Like, no, thank you. I'm gonna like go on a walk or I'm gonna watch a movie or watch some Netflix. So I think one of the like the simplest things you do is just like finding little ways to like bring a little like magic into the mundane. Like use your favorite like coffee cup in the morning or like light
Yeah.
a candle, like kind of like romanticize your life. Like, that stuff
I love
feels
that.
so silly.
It's
Um,
simple and that's all it needs to be.
and it's like play your favorite music like when you're in the shower. Like take 3 deep breaths when you're in the shower. Like you're already in the shower. Like do those little things. And I'm kind of speaking to myself, but
Sure.
like it's one of those things where yeah, like it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it. And it's just like such a simple thing that you can do that like makes a big difference.
Yeah. I want
And
to put a plug in here for this. I'm going to
yeah,
put a plug in here. We were talking about something that was just life changing for me. It's
uh,
been over 2 years, probably going on three now. When I started experimenting and learning about mindful practice, and it
mhm.
has been game changer. It definitely there's nothing that compare you have to do this if you want to
Yeah,
change your life really, and that is becoming mindful. And mindful does not mean like it's a meditation practice. You can call it
yeah,
meditation, mindful practice. It's not prayer because it's not that. Mindfulness and doing a mindful practice is becoming aware of what your brain is doing. It's paying attention to what you're paying attention to.
right.
It
Yes.
is, it's amazing. And we can actually reprogram our brain when we learn how to do this. And if you just take 5 or 10 minutes a day to do it, learn about it. Because you got to learn about it. You don't
Yeah.
just go meditate. People think, I just don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. Well, learn about it because people have this idea that meditation is a certain thing and that they think they're bad at it. Nobody's
Mhm.
bad at it. It's not about that. I can tell just by looking at your face, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
But
do.
so
I'm
mindful
like,
practice changed
yeah,
me. Like don't have the stress level. I still have all the things that I have to do daily,
yeah,
but the stress level is just like wow, like it's gone,
yeah,
it's plummeted because I'm aware. And that
yeah.
awareness causes us to momentarily take deep breaths
Hmm.
and go, my brain is doing this and it's causing these feelings. What's real, what's happening right now. It's just
Yeah,
awareness and it just changes everything. So I just want to put a plug in there for women
yeah, no,
that
the
don't
awareness
know
is
about mindful practice.
yeah, the awareness is great. And it's funny that you mentioned the meditation. You're like, I know that you can relate because I can. I am that person. Like, I'm horrible at meditation, but the awareness is huge. And it's like again, like you said, like just taking the deep breaths or like the couple of like just paying attention to what you're doing. Eating a meal without distraction. So like not reading or watching TV or working on your computer, like actually like feeling like, okay, how does this taste in my mouth? Or like when you're cooking, like the smells, just being very aware of those things. I actually had a therapist tell me, she said this one thing about meditation. It really did help me. because I am that person that I struggle with meditation in the sense of like, as soon as I start, my brain just gets distracted. I just thinking about all the different things. I can never keep it focused. And she was like, meditation's not necessarily the ability to never let your mind water.
Right.
It's your mind's going to water. Like
Yes.
that's inevitable. She's like, meditation, like the skill is built in letting your mind wander and being able to bring it back. Like, how
Yeah.
quickly can you bring it back? So it's like if you meditate
Beautiful.
and you only make it 10 seconds before your mind starts to water, great, that's okay. Bring it back. And then that's it. That's it for the day. And then the next day, maybe you try to like make it 20 seconds. And it's like being able to be incremental in that. But reminding myself that it's not about like my mind never wandering, but being able to bring it back was really helpful for me because my mind's going to
Yeah.
all of the.
No, exactly. That's the whole key to mindfulness and practicing being. I'm so much more focused than I've ever been because I do this mindful practice, but it's that people say
Yeah.
I'm terrible at meditating because I can't focus because my mind is wandering all the time. But that's not what meditation is. Meditation is realizing that your mind has wandered and then coming back. And
Yeah.
you just keep doing that.
Yeah.
And the more you practice it, the better you
The
get
easier
at
it is.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's definitely a game changer. So anybody listening, women, if you have never looked into it, and I use an app called Happier.
Uh-huh.
It actually has courses and teaches you stuff about being mindful and meditation. And there's great stuff in there, like a course on reducing your anxiety, and you do a mindful practice on anxiety for
Yeah.
several weeks or whatever. And it's like I've learned so much from that app called Happier.
Mhm.
So anyway, and the thing I love about that, I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but I get into this big time. Is that this one doesn't do anything with music in the background, and I love that because I just know that the brain is processing music in the
Mhm.
background, and I don't want that. I really want to have full-on mindfulness. So not
Yeah.
that there's anything wrong with that. I think there's a time and a place for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The
But
music is
that's what I
great.
like about this app in particular.
Yeah. No, that's really great. And then even just like being able to know too that like meditation can also be like in the form of movement. Like you could take like a meditative walk,
Yeah.
like very,
Yes.
like
Meditative
no,
walks. I do that a
no
lot.
headphones or maybe headphones, like the noise canceling ones, so you don't like hear what else is,
Yeah.
but just like focusing on like your feet and like what's
Yes.
you and the birds and everything like that. So knowing that it doesn't have to be like I'm sitting in this like namaste, it
Exactly.
can
Yes.
be anywhere.
You can do anything. I will do a mindful practice while I'm cooking a meal. I'm like, I'm going to focus on this, what I'm doing, this activity. And every time my mind wanders, I'm going to come right back to this. That's mindful practice. I love that. So, anyway, great little discussion there on the notes of reducing stress, but it's really
Yeah.
a game changer. So, all right. So we can probably start heading into wrapping up. But one of the things that I definitely want to talk about is the process. If you're able to kind of walk us through the process of if somebody wanted to start working with Merrick, what would be the process? And let's talk about the difference too about going directly to Merrick or versus I'm going to direct them to coming to Rock That Fitness as a partner
Mhm.
because you get a better deal for one. Um, yeah, and then of course, I'm just a
Yeah.
fan of Rock That Fitness. So, yeah, tell us the process. Do you want to tell us the process if they go through Rock That Fitness?
Yeah,
Like,
I can do both.
sure. Yeah, let's do that.
There's just like a couple of little differences. So I'll talk about just kind of like what it would look like if somebody just comes to Merrick directly and then
Sure.
talk about the differences. But so typically if somebody were to apply or book a call for to become a client with Merrick, they start with what it's called like the initial consultation. So that is a very similar to like a coaching one-to-one like intake call. Like let's get a good feel for your goals, who you are as a person, what does life look like? So I want to hear about your biofeedback, so your sleep, your energy, your recovery, your digestion, your stress levels. What are some things you like to do for fun? Like I want to hear all of that information, but also get a good feel for, okay, well, what are some of the symptoms that you're experiencing? Like where do you want to be? And I also like to personally ask just like, when was the last time that like you felt this way? Like, have you ever felt the way that you want to feel before? Because that
Mm-hmm.
gives a good gauge on like, okay, where do we need to go? And do you have a reference point of like what you're capable of? Because if you felt this way before, like we know it's possible. So we know that we can get there. Um, And then from there, we'll do like a medical history. So we want to hear, okay, are you on any current medications? If you had any like testing, family medical history, do you have anything that runs in the family? And then we'll select a lab panel. So we do have 3 lab panels that we can choose from: the comprehensive, the complete, and then there is now an executive panel. So from there, once the labs are drawn, you'll take them to a lab court, get your labs drawn, and then you actually get on another call with your health coach to review everything. And that's really where the role of the health coach kind of gets to shine, because you do get that continued support. So you're not only going to go through all of your labs together of like what's in that optimal range, so not the standard like without disease or with disease, but like what's that optimal range. And then diving into, okay, well, what are some things that you can do nutritionally, lifestyle wise, supplementation wise to like start moving the needle? Especially for me, given the background that I have, like I want to be able to give you guys tangible things of like, okay, what can I do nutritionally, lifestyle? Cause like those things matter. Like they make a
Right.
big
Yeah.
difference. Um, and then from there, that's when you get to book with one of our providers. So the provider is going to do a full lab review with as well, go through everything. What are they seeing? What are they like hearing based on like your family history? What are like based off of your goals and where you want to go? And then that's where the final treatment plan gets to be created. So me and the provider will kind of come together. What are the things that we think are going to be the most helpful, essential, like you mentioned earlier? And then ultimately it's up to you, to the client and the coach to kind of talk through and decide, okay, what do we want to move forward with? And then from there, you get to monitor things. So that's where, similar to like how in coaching, you guys have check-ins, whether those are calls or emails or however you do your check-ins, you have continued support. Difference is like when you meet with a primary care, if you were to go and get labs done, like you kind of just told, okay, this is what I'm seeing, take X, Y, and Z, and like I'll see you in 6 months or whatever it is. At Merrick, you do have the coach, which is really nice because you do get to like email and ask questions, or if you want to book a call, like we can get on a call. You have those monthly check-ins to touch base on how's life going, how's the nutrition stuff going. Like we get to hear about all of those things and adjust as needed. So if you're like, hey, I'm like not feeling great on X medication or X supplements, like, okay, let's talk about that. Let's maybe adjust things. So you get kind of that like real time adjustment versus like, I just have to wait 6 months until I meet with my doctor.
Right.
Difference between that approach and like the clients that are coming through Rock That Fitness is they are going to essentially just skip the initial consultation. So it's like they will order labs through you, through your Rock That Fitness with the discount, which I'd recommend. And then from there, they would meet with a health coach to review their labs. And then that health coach, because it's the first time meeting them, they'll get a kind of a brief history of like what's been going on, what were some of the reasons that you got the labs drawn, what are some of the things you're working on in your coaching. And then from there, it's kind of up to the client to decide, okay, based on this information, based on what I'm seeing, do I want to take the next step and become a client of Merrick to see the provider and start some additional treatment? Or do I want to kind of take these results and like do my own thing or just make some like basic modifications in terms of nutrition and supplementation? So there's kind of a couple of different routes, but ultimately it's like up to the client to decide, okay, do I want to move forward, or do I want to kind of just get that one-off lab review?
So it sounds like you have more, um, you don't have to, you're not committed to the full on consultation labs and then seeing the health coach and then seeing a provider when you go through Rock That Fitness.
Correct. Yeah. And it's always like, I mean, and I think that like that to some degree, it lowers the barrier to entry, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
not everybody
It's
is
not as
going,
big a commitment.
yeah, it's not as big of a commitment. And also, like, depending on what somebody's going through and like what their symptoms are, they may not have a ton of things going on in their labs where they necessarily need hormone replacement or they need additional medication. Maybe they can optimize things just with nutrition and lifestyle. So it kind of lowers the barrier to entry of like having to see a doctor when you're like, okay, maybe I just take this back to Anna and I work on my nutrition and stuff like that. And then we can reassess. And at that point, if we don't see improvement, then I can make the decision, okay, now I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
it
it's
gives
it's
client
like,
more autonomy.
yeah, it's not as big of a commitment. Plus, it's not as big of an investment either. And you can have a discount if you go through Rock That Fitness. So that's in the show notes. Go check out the link and you'll get all the information. This is a big deal to understand that when you get your labs done through Marek Health, they order how many labs is it for biomarkers? Like 27?
So the comprehensive, which is the minimum required, is actually 70 plus biomarkers. So the minimum you're going to get is like 70 biomarkers.
Oh my, okay. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it was less than I thought it was like 26 or 27. I can't remember what it says.
Yeah, so it's like 70 for the comprehensive. I think you get about 100 for the complete, and then that executive, I'm not even sure off the top of my head. It's probably like it's a lot of biomarkers. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. But
yeah.
it's different. So this is the question I think that comes up. Why
Mhm.
would I want to go through Merrick to get my labs taken, to get my biomarkers, rather than I can just go to my gynecologist and ask them to go ahead and get my hormones checked, my sex hormones checked, and my metabolism hormones checked. Like, why? What would be like, what do I need to look out for if I'm going to go to my doctor for this instead?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. I think it's a really common thing. Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just go and like have my doctor order my hormones or my thyroid or whatever. And a lot of times, like depending on your relationship with your provider and like where that provider is specifically, like some people are gonna order relatively comprehensive panels. Like sometimes you can get a really good provider that does that. A lot of times, unfortunately, like the providers are going to just order like the minimum required for what they need to code for insurance. So like thyroid's like the best example because people are like always like I got my thyroid checked, and a lot of times the provider will test just your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. But and that's a great first step of like, okay, like is the signal from your brain to your thyroid like even on? Like is it over functioning? Is it under functioning? But it doesn't give us a good look at, okay, well, what's your body actually using? Like how much thyroid does your body actually have to use? So like that's a really big one. You always want to make sure that you're testing like your TSH, your free T3, your free T4, and then even maybe potentially like your reverse T3 and your antibodies to test for any like autoimmune disease. So
Mm,
um, that's always a really big one. And then with hormones specifically, you always want to test like your testosterone, your total and your free, your estrogen and progesterone. But you also want to test your neurosteroids. Like DHEA, pregnenolone is always a good one. DHEA is a neurosteroid. It does downstream to your sex hormone specifically, but it also plays a really big role in like cognitive function, immune health. It can also be linked to like mood disorders like anxiety and depression. So like that's always one that you want to get a big picture at because for females, we respond really well to DHEA. Whereas like men aren't because their primary hormone is testosterone, they're not going to respond as well to like DHA supplementation. But females can be a very good like first step, like more conservative option of like, let me start with some DHEA to increase my natural levels of testosterone without having to go like the HRT route just yet.
right. Okay. That's a lot. But
Yeah.
I love that because that's just here to say that Marek Health is going to cover all of that comprehensively in detail,
Yeah.
where most doctors are not because they're just going to go off of what your insurance will allow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And in addition to that, I mean, you're getting like your insulin sensitivity. So we're gonna look at your insulin, your fasting glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, but then like the full lipid panel and like your standard, like your CBC and CMP, the things that most providers will order. But even with the lipid panel, we do add those additional markers that give us a better view of like your cardiovascular, like genetic predispositions, like that ApoB and the lipoprotein little. So you're just getting a more in-depth look at everything.
Yeah, very good. So thank you so much, Ashlyn, for all this information. I'm curious if anybody wanted to ask you some questions or wanted to reach out to you, would they be able to ask you questions and reach out to you? And how? How do we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd be more than happy to take questions. I think email is always going to be a really great option. But also I think I can definitely send you my Calendly link for people that did want to like book a call or you want to like put it in the show notes or anything like that.
Yeah, we can put it in the show notes.
You have like a free like
Definitely.
15 to 20 minute like discovery call. So if they just have questions or they want to like get like a different perspective on something, yeah, I'm more than happy to chat with everybody.
Great. I love that. Thank you so much. I didn't even think about asking that till just now. So, so
Yeah.
good. We'll put that in the show notes to make sure. Any last minute, last wrapping up comments or thoughts you want to share?
I think the only thing that I really wanted to just kind of like harp on, and I think that like we touched on a little bit of this already too, is just that like the women like listening specifically, like know that this stuff is just like uncomfortable and there's a lot of changes that are going on, but also know that like you're not alone. And also, it's not something that you're kind of stuck with. I know you and I talked about this a little bit when you were even just talking about like starting the podcast was that like yes, these hormone changes are happening, and yes, they're very overwhelming and scary. And to some degree, we don't always have the most control over it, but it's also something that we do get to like take our part in terms of like creating that change. And how we view and reframe that perspective, I think makes the biggest difference. So if you see it as the like, oh, this is just the way it is, this is just like the part of aging, it's like, okay, we're probably going to have more of a negative experience and maybe even experience more of those symptoms too.
Yeah.
It's crazy how like our mindset does play into like our actual symptoms versus like, yes, this is a really big shift. Yes, things are changing. Life is also changing. Like most women in their like 40s and 50s are like, jobs are changing, kids are moving out of the house. Like there's like, it's almost like an identity shift to some degree
Yeah. A lot.
that it can be very like unsettling, but if you can view it as like a new chapter or blank canvas, like you do get to kind of capitalize on that. Okay, this is a fresh start. Like, how do I want this next chapter to
Yeah.
look? And know that you do have like the ability to like create that change. And some of that is like through optimizing like your health and knowing that like you get to kind of like you've spent your whole entire life investing in others and taking care of others. And like ultimately this is kind of like your opportunity to like give back to yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, just to add to that, from my own personal experience, it truly is and has felt very empowering because without without going down this path with Marek Health, I'm sure, still be confused, probably frustrated with where I was at personally with my own sex hormones and not getting the answers I needed and stuff. So I can just say for myself, it has been just an incredible experience. I'm so thankful for how Merrick has helped me in my health and my fitness and where I'm at in my sex life, like all the things. It's empowering and it's been great. So if I can put a plug in for that, it's
Yeah,
been game
yeah,
changer for me.
absolutely. Yeah. And like the biggest thing too, and like I have to remind myself this constantly. My high school softball coach actually always told me is like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like this stuff isn't like a quick fix overnight. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
be like little change by little change. But it does really pay off and make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, true. It's not overnight. I have noticed that it took months for things to settle. It took months. And we had adjustments and we had blood work to review how things have been going and then make the adjustments from there. So it's an ongoing process, but I'm so thankful and it's incredible. It's an incredible experience and I'm so glad. I'm so happy for America. I'm glad to be a part of it too. So anyway, thank you so much, Ashton, for being on the show
Welcome.
today and for your insight and just your time. We really appreciate you so much.
Yeah, no, this was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Self care, self love all day, every
Yes,
day, in
yeah.
all the ways. Rock on.